dear God. Oh.
See what happens to your dreams when you yank the trigger?
Yeah, that's strong.
Well, I was fucking around. I should have been aiming better. But,
well, look at the freaking bullseye. There's nothing left of it.
yeah, well, they pay me to do that. Alright, here it is. The end-all be-all of the HK45 versus the USP45. This is going to be the only version of the video that remains up after I do this, because it's in HD and I'm sick of having 15 different parts. Now, these are two very similar but also very different handguns. And also keep in mind that the USP45 on the right, the original design was released in 1995. Okay? So, almost 20 years old, this handgun here. Keeping that in mind, we're going to get into this review. Now, just a little history on the USP45. The USP handgun line is an offshoot of the Mark 23, which was produced and also equally tested for the offensive handgun program that the Department of Defense initiated to find a offensive capable handgun, which the HK Mark 23 Mod 0 won. So the USP45 is a smaller version of the Mark 23. Let's compare the dimensions of both these pistols. The USP45 is 7.87 inches long, where the HK45 is 7.52 inches long. The height of the USP45 is 5.55 inches, where the height of the HK45 is 5.83 inches. The width of the USP is 1.26 for the 45 caliber variant. and the width of the HK45 is 1.42. The barrel length on the USP is 4.41 inches, where the HK45 is 4.53 inches, and the sight radius is 6.34 inches, where the HK45 has a 6.61 inch sight radius, which is outstanding. The HK45, loaded with 10 rounds of 230 grain ammunition, weighs in at 2 pounds, 6.1 ounces, plussed up. 2 pounds, 6.8 ounces, and with the TLR1S, weighs in at 2 pounds, 10.8 ounces. The USP45 weighs in at, with 12 rounds of 230 grain standard pressure ammo, weighs in at 2 pounds, 8.5 ounces, with a UTL, weighs 2 pounds, 12.5 ounces, and if it was plussed up, 2 pounds, 13.2 ounces. Now, both of these pistols are built to HK's quality standards. I've had zero problems with either of these handguns, and they just run. They absolutely run like crazy. The field strip is damn near identical to both guns, but you will find that the internals are slightly different. So all you're going to do is pull the slide back to the takedown point, pull the slide lock, slide release out. There's your receiver. One of the finest recoil systems ever fashioned for any handgun ever. And your barrel will pop right out. The HK45 breaks down pretty similar. Just drag the slide back to the takedown point, push the slide lock, slide release through. There's your receiver. Recoil assembly, and the barrel. Now, starting off, you'll see the slides have similar construction on the inside. Okay, you're not getting too much different with the internals on the slide. The HK45 slide feels a little bit heavier, but not by much. And the only difference really that I see is the engagement from the slide to the barrel versus the USP. It's about twice as long. Now, as far as the barrels go, the HK45 has a longer barrel, which you can notice when you put side by side. The other thing you're going to notice is the HK45 has a O-ring on the barrel to increase accuracy, or so they say. The feed ramp on the barrel of the HK45 is longer, but that's probably due to the frame changes inside the HK45 frame. Both are equally polished, and both barrels are of the same quality. When you're looking down each barrel, you know it's an HK barrel. The recoil assemblies are fundamentally different in these handguns, and they both offer you something different, actually. The USP45 has a secondary buffer and spring in there, which really helps with the recoil. You will not shoot a softer recoiling 45 than the USP45. Hands down, I don't think there's one on the planet that will recoil softer than this. Maybe the Mark 23, because it has a similar setup and it's just longer, but HK really mastered the recoil system with this design. Now, hop over to the HK45. They took this design out of the USP Compact series and extended it out. The performance characteristic difference that you're going to see is this will recoil softer than this one will, but this will fire slightly faster than this one will. It's a give and take kind of thing, and depending on what kind of shooter you are, you may not be able to shoot the difference or feel the difference, but there is a difference, and it's important to understand the difference. Internally, these are both variant 1s for the USP and HK45 line, which means double action, single action, safety decocker. You'll see inside the frame that it's almost identical setup. It's an HK. You know, they're really not going to change that much of their design. So, reassembly for both is the same and very easy. Just drop the barrel back in. It's really hard to do this angle, so I'm just going to borrow this. Reinsert the recoil assembly. Put your slide back on. Line it back up. Drop your slide lock, slide release back in there, and you're good to go. HK45, same thing. Barrel's just a little harder to get in there because of the length of the engagement of the slide. Drop that back in there like so. Oh, I'm bent over like an old lady. Throw the slide on like this, just how you took it off, reverse order. And drop your slide lock, slide release in, same manner. So overall, if you have a USP or an HK45, they both field strip and operate the same. Alright, now here comes a sore subject for some of the HK owners here that own both guns. The flush fit magazine capacity for the USP45 is 12 rounds. It's possible you can get a 10 round magazine from the factory also if you're in a socialist state, and I strongly recommend staying away from Pro Mag, but you can get a 20 round Pro Mag or a, you know, copied USP magazine. So 12 round flush fit magazine capacity from the factory, and the HK45 has a 10 round flush fit magazine capacity. This is the only magazine that they make for this gun. So no extended capacity magazines, no floor plate extensions, no nothing, just 10 rounds. This gun's good everywhere. Now you will see a thickness difference between the two. However, going on to ergonomics, features, triggers, and sights, the grip on the USP is going to be much more boxy, but overall it's not that much thicker than the HK45. You're really not going to notice too much of a difference, save the contouring of the grip. However, it is thinner on the HK45. So, the USP45 has a, what they call a proprietary, what most people will call a proprietary rail. However, again, if you saw my USP45 review that I just did not too long ago, it's in the description below. This rail was an attempt at pioneering a rail system on a handgun, and it just didn't take. The 1913 Picatinny rail was much easier to use and more intuitive, where this rail kind of didn't really, it's thinner on the bottom and a few other small things. So you have, what's kind of funny is almost a reverse 1913 Picatinny rail interface for this rail. So if it really bothers you, there are adapters that you can get for this. You will also see that this gun was designed to fight in all climates. There's a very large trigger guard for gloved hands. Same thing with the slide release mechanism, the decocker, safety lever, and overall the gun it's a hefty gun. It's a large gun designed for getting the job done. That's what this gun's for. I do have the factory matched trigger kit in here. I didn't make it clear on my USP review, but it's not just the trigger. There's a whole series of springs and all sorts of stuff that went into this, so it's not just this trigger. The trigger pull on this is much lighter, much more crisp, and provides the end user with much better feedback from the trigger and all that other stuff. I also have the HK45C magazine release. It's also an HK proprietary part, pretty much off another gun that just fits into this one, and it's a lot larger contact surface for magazine changes. Those are the only two modifications I've done to this gun, but they're both HK factory modifications. The sight radius, though slightly shorter than the HK45, is adequate. It's very similar to a GI 1911, so you're not going to be losing too much there. It's kind of hard to see. Let me line the front blades up perfect and zoom in here. That's the difference you're going to see. So I already noted the actual lengths and measurements earlier, so you can do the math. But this gun, for its time, was very well ahead of the curve. 12 rounds in the magazine, very intuitive controls. I know this isn't a very popular feature here in the States, but very, very fast mag changes with this setup, and it's just a very, very solid gun. It also allows lefties to change magazines quickly, although you will not find an ambidextrous USP. They can't move the slide release to make it lefty friendly. You can get ambi controls for the safety decocker. You can flip it, or you can change it to the LEM trigger group, make it a double action only with a short reset. Now the HK45. The HK45 has interchangeable back straps, a very, very well done ergonomic grip. The deck for magazine release is much larger. They made the slide release, slide lock, ambidextrous. The sight radius is longer, although you can't get tritium from the factory anymore unless you get an American-made one, hence the tacticals having the night sights. They added front cocking serrations, rear cocking serrations, the 1913 Picatinny rail. The trigger guard is still very large for gloved hands, although not quite as large as the USPs. It's very, very similar, but not quite the same size. You'll see more air with the USP. And they also streamline the slide for ease of holstering. There's a much easier angle for finding your holster when you're going like this and wrapping it into the holster. So a few minor design changes with the HK45, but enough to make it fundamentally different. So it's a different handgun. It's not necessarily the same. They also took a few internal trigger parts, I'll list them below, to give this more of a crisp trigger than the USP stock, but it's not anywhere near a match trigger. I think it was only the match sear that they put in here. I'm not 100% sure, but they definitely made this trigger a little bit more stiff and crisp than the stock USP trigger, although the stock USP trigger is not bad at all. So overall, they made a lot of advancements to this firearm, and it definitely took hold. It's a very, very nice firearm. The reason that the HK45 has the recoil system from the USP compact but extended out is to give it a slightly lower profile versus the USP. It's not going to look like it that much, but you can see it when it's in your hand. They also kind of reduced the material back here towards the beaver tail, so you get a little bit higher on the grip, but it's not by much. It's still not quite straight across, but it's much closer than the USP. The USP kind of sits in there a little funny for some people. So what are the differences? The differences are subjective, really. There are mechanical and physical differences between the two guns, and they'll fill the same roles, but this is more of a duty pistol. This is focused around duty pistol. I have concealed carried it. It's not impossible to concealed carry, but it is a full-size pistol. It's great in a lot of roles, and there are a lot of serious actual operators that use this handgun. Now, that said, the HK45 will do everything that the USP45 will do, and I'm not going to say does it better, but does it with a different approach. It's a much more ergonomic pistol. This is kind of like an old school muscle car, and this is kind of like a newer pony car, if that makes any sense. They're the same thing. This is more of a Boss 429 Mustang, and this is a modern Mustang right here. This does all sorts of wonderful things, and so does this, but they just have a different way of doing it. So you're not compromising with either. It's just, do you want to change magazines more but have a better grip and a better sight radius and a better barrel length? Or do you want the 12 round, you know, kick-ass take names pistol that goes in, does work, leaves, and you know you did it well? This gun will also, in my opinion, outlast this gun in the internals department. There are USP45s with insane round counts, and that's really what you're still buying this pistol for. They still make it. The HK45 has not replaced the USP45. They still make both pistols. You can still go get a brand new BD, BE USP45, and there's no reason not to buy one if you like it. There's no reason to buy one of these over the other because this one's newer or this one does something, but it's all subjective, really. But there are USPs with insane round counts. Federal Ammunition Company ran this USP so long. I mean, they changed the springs, they changed all these other things, but I think it was pushing 300,000 rounds. Just something absolutely ridiculous for ammo testing. Just absolutely ridiculous. And even if you're like, well, they replaced the springs, they probably replaced the barrel, blah, blah, blah. Even if they did that, that's on the frame. This is a polymer frame gun, and it did almost 300,000 rounds. That's insane. That's insane. You know, and there have been torture tests on the HK45. Todd Green over at pistoltraining.com did very exhaustive tests on both the P30 and the HK45. He did it on the HK45 full size, and he ran that thing ragged. Absolutely ragged. I think it went to 50-something thousand rounds before it had a serious parts breakage or malfunction. He did get it normally serviced, but that's insane. How many people are going to run 50,000 rounds through one handgun? That's incredible. And he wasn't nice to it either. So you have both guns that will run hard, and they'll go through a lot of punishment, and they'll do everything you ask them to do. And they'll do it with a smile on their face, and then ask you for more, and then sleep quietly with you at the end of the evening. They are wonderful handguns. If you like the USP, get the USP. I'm never getting rid of this gun. I don't care what they do. I don't care if they make phasers from Star Trek or blasters from Star Wars or some other gun from another sci-fi show. I'm keeping this until the day I die. And the same thing with this gun right here. Both these handguns are with me for life. So whichever one you prefer is whichever one you prefer. But honestly, between the two, it's balancing what you want over the other. If they had made the HK45 with a 12-round magazine, then, and the same recoil system, and you could have matched triggers and all the parts that they offered for the USP, they would no longer make the USP. But they still have contracts for the USP. The USP still does work places. It's an incredible firearm. This was an incredible leap in engineering. And the HK45 is no slouch either. But in the end, which gun you pick is up to you. A lot of people are going to default to the more modern firearm, but there are still a large group of diehard USP fans out there, and I'm one of them. So you'll never find this gun with this serial number up for sale anywhere unless I die. And same thing with this gun. They are both quality handguns. They'll both do the same job. And if you can, shoot both, and if you like them, own both. There's no reason not to. And one is not going to do anything crazy that the other one won't do. So do with that what you will. Your mileage may vary, all that other fun stuff, but just they've done me so well so far that I'm never getting rid of them. And I trust my life to both handguns. They have both protected my life for a very long time, and I'm never getting rid of them. So with that, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Take care of each other. Stay safe, and support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
You got him. Bullseye.
Ah, shit.
Squeeze. Yeah, bullseye. Two at 6. 3 at 6.